Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before we get into my testimony, I'd just like to thank all my new subscribers and I hope this video and the ones in the future find you well, give you peace, and let's jump right into this. For those of you that know what a testimony is, this goes without saying, but for any others, it is important to know that your testimony is and becomes your life, mirroring how Jesus' testimony was his entire life, from before he was even conceived to after he rose from the grave after crucifixion. Which brings me to an important way God communicates with us through the spiritual and physical world patterns. The Lord's way of mirroring events in the Bible, not only to themselves, but in today's lives as well, is not a coincidence. Remember this because as we explore more topics pertaining to the Spirit, you will see this happen more and more. Now, with that said, to make this more digestible, I will separate my testimony into 7 different points. The first of those will be who am I? And this consists of how I was named with purpose, my background and my family's background. Who was I? What events and trauma brought me to this point in my life? What the world said it was. What God says I am, God's truth and light in me. Coming to terms with that, fully surrendering to Him. 5. The changes I felt in my spirit, the immediate and long lasting effects to today, the physical changes I felt and saw, immediate and to today as well, and lastly, how God aligns our purpose to our testimony, spirit, and very being. Now, before I get into it, I just want to thank you for your viewership, and I hope this transforms your life, even if only a little. Now, with that said, let's get into it. My testimony, like many of us, starts before I was even thought of in the mind of my parents. My mom and dad, respectfully, came from a family where their grandmothers were the ones responsible for bringing Christ into our family line. So even before I was born, the stage was being set in my parents' lives for the Lord to be over us. Now, this mirrors how before Jesus' birth, many things in the Bible were all setting up to his coming and past it. And so, just like that, in our lives and in my life, my past, before I was even born, things were being set up already for me to be here. Now, before me, my mother and father were experiencing difficulties getting pregnant. After joining a prayer group, she and other women experiencing the same problem were able to get pregnant. Kansas City State legend Michael Bishop, who I was named after, is said to be one of the greatest of all time college quarterbacks and was just recently inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Now, why is that important to know? Well, here's the real kicker. A quarterback is one who directs and leads their team into victory in whatever way that is showcased. And a bishop is a spiritual superintendent, a person who manages and superintends for Christ. Now that's powerful, and I just found that out today. And it's amazing how that just came all together. And Michael Bishop, who was inducted recently, that happened just last month or from today. So this is all very recent and showing itself in the present. Remember what I said about patterns earlier? This was another point where I saw the Lord's hand in my life before I got here. God makes all things, no matter what, work together for my good and for all of us because His love never fails. I was taken advantage of, like so many of us are, and never addressed it with anyone for years. I kept this to myself and pushed it to the back of my mind, not because I blamed myself, but because I believed it did not matter it to who I was. Eventually, though, it started to affect me from every angle I looked. The world would tell me one thing and God would say another. I never have turned away from God, but just like everyone else, I fell many times and felt ashamed, scared, and would come running back to God, which is what He wants, because only in Him are your burdens laid down, but only if you give them to Him. Now, I will never forget this. It was 2016. I turned 18 for the first time ever. When the preacher asked for those who wanted to be prayed for to come up, I built up the courage to get up and go. I'd been to hundreds of churches and hundreds of preachers, or not hundreds, sorry, but many preachers, and I never had that courage to go up, even though I knew and I felt like I should have. But today, that day was different. I was so anxious I could barely get a single word out. He said, "That's okay. I know what to pray for. The Lord has let me know." And afterwards, he told me, the Lord said, by 24, He wants you to make a decision in your heart. From then on, I struggled back and forth, but with my heart always toward God, no matter the fear and shame that I felt. January 6th, Three Kings Day of 2021. I was 23 years old, a month before my birthday. I had been doing better with my struggles, but with some mistakes here and there. That night, I had become overwhelmed with emotions from my realization that I had been dealing with that original trauma i- i- in the wrong way, and most importantly, never giving it to God. I just internalized it, like so many of us do. But when dealing with God, internalizing it and praying about it, but not letting it go willingly, makes that soul wound, the trauma you internalized, never go away. Remember, God is here for us and breaks off all chains of sin. But if you are mentally reluctant to those chains to let them go, how can He spiritually break them? Don't forget, we have a body which has its own mind, and those things are fueled by our spirit. Physically, it's your blood working with your heart and your brain, but He breathed the spirit into each of us. Coming to terms with my internalized trauma, I fell down in the closet and started to weep tears of joy. Why, you ask? Because in that moment I let go mentally what was weighing on me spiritually for over a decade. In the Bible, many of its writers talk about what if. anything would they do in the presence of the Lord. You can fall down to your knees, cry, and even laugh, and it is all valid responses to his presence. There is no universal way of encountering and reacting to God's presence. I instantly felt my mind fill with memories I had long forgotten, things I didn't even remember experiencing. How is that possible? I, things I didn't even know I had forgotten. Things like who was in the room when I was birthed, and people and trips that I had been on as kids, all of those memories, the good and the bad, I got all of those back. But it happened in just a second. But I could feel them fill my head. I found my composure pretty quickly, but I felt the Lord urge me to share what I had on my spirit in that moment with my mom and my friend's parents. After putting her on the speaker and going to my friend's parents, I told them, I'm not perfect. No one is. But I'm glad the Lord brought us together. I am glad I was able to be a blessing to you and my friend despite the struggles I have. I've never stopped looking toward Jesus, and even despite what I do, and even even I've never stopped looking toward Jesus, even despite what I do. And I'm glad I was able to be the best person I could be for God and all of you. And after saying that, I felt myself grow tired. They caught me as I laid down to the floor. I closed my eyes and passed out peacefully. In that moment, I felt the Spirit of the Lord around me and my spirit leave my body. How did I know that? Because I felt comfort, not physically, but spiritually. In this vision, I felt warmth, not cold and empty, but whole and full. Ever since I could speak, I have always loved astronomy, space, the stars, and how they move and where they are and all of that things. I have not only loved it, I've been able to understand concepts in grade school, first grade, that were never realized or I didn't even know was a proven thing until high school. And some of the things weren't even found out until years after I had said and asked these things to teachers and people, but who didn't have the answers or the right to say, you're right. So, in this vision, surrounded by stars and galaxies, I could hear a harmony of indistinct origin, but soothing to my spirit. And even in this place, rather than be distracted by what was around me, I only wanted to focus on this light right in front of me. Not a star, but much, much brighter. But it was not blinding like stars or any light that you look at. In that moment, and somehow before I knew it was the Lord, peace filled my spirit for the first time in over a decade. Then, not with a voice, but with his presence, he said, I had been doing well, despite the times I would go behind him and do things not of him, that in my continued pursuit of change in him And because I accepted and believed in what he had done and will do, in all of that, I was welcomed in his house. With my spirit in his hands, I spoke. I am not ready. I want to use my renewed spirit to live for you. I want to finish what I can do for you, with you, and my family and friends and the world as my witness. I felt him, and a presence of reassurance came over me. In this vision, I saw him gently place my spirit back into my body. Then, instantly, I sat up and I stood up. And the first words out of my mouth were, God is real. I cried out 7 times before collecting myself. Then I started crying out more, saying I wasn't ready. Then, after that, I brought the phone up to my ear to talk to my mom. That is when I noticed I physically sounded different to myself, as if I had lost familiarity with my own self up to this point. Then I physically felt lighter. I noticed as if a weighted vest and cuffs were on me for years had just now were gone. I I felt extremely lighter physically. Lastly, my own mother's voice sounded different but familiar, like I had lost the ability before this spiritual encounter to recognize my own mother's voice for so long. Our testimonies are our lives, and mine is far from over. This is just the beginning for me. I hope that me sharing this first milestone of my life's testimony will shed a light where the darkness has hidden your God given purpose from you. Which brings me to my final point, how God aligned this part of my testimony to my purpose. My life has always been me directing my friends through their trials and tribulations so God can help manifest their purpose with them on a personal level. So, because I was named with purpose, the Lord has made me a bishop to my friends through our friendship. I hope through this channel we can be friends in Christ together so God can align at your purpose to your testimony to feed your spirit and bring you closer to companionship with Him. Thank you for watching this video and hearing my testimony. Like I said, I hope this helps you in any way possible towards your life. In my next video, we'll be moving on to talking about and reviewing things about who is our spirit man, because we each, man and and a woman, we each and everyone, no matter who we are and what we say, we each have a spirit man. It is your spirit, and it was important that I talk about my testimony first, because how can I hop into these topics if you and don't know, and if I don't share how God changed my life and brought me through my first part of my testimony. So, to keep up with me, if you'd like to, you can go to Instagram, which is at the bishops underscore and then the S and house there. And you can find me on TikTok at the Bishop CEO. I also have these links in my channel about me page. They're all linked with the Instagram and TikTok. Also, the Bishop's Patio is the social networking hub I made for Christians of all spectrums of Christianity, from Catholics to Mormons to conservatives to contemporaries and all in between. This is a place where you can feel welcome and safe to share how God has been moving in your life and vice versa. I'd be doing that too. It's also a place where we can talk and just talk about anything, what music we like to play and what things do we do with our families in our free time, all that fun stuff you can do there. It's also a place where we can share our own testimonies and dive deeper into topics related to how God speaks to our spirit. To find to get to the bishop's patio, the link is there at, and you, even if you don't use the HTTPS, it's just the dash bishop dash s dash patio dot mn dot co, or click the link that's also in my channel about me page. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you, and may the Lord give you joy, love, and peace. Bye.